And welcome back. Joining us for our second conversation are representatives from CITO to talk to us about the MOU that the government has formed with Microsoft and of course their initiative to promote e-governance in our country and digital operations. We have on our couch this morning Mr. Mike Singh, who is of course the Chief Technology Officer at CITO, and Mr. Francisco Gonzalez, who is the Acting Director at CITO. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to Open Your Eyes. Thanks for being here. So the MOU is kind of like a buzz term in the news recently. Tell us a little bit about what it encompasses.
Okay. I'll start more from the policy side to have you understand where we're trying to go.
All right.
Government about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago signed, approved a policy which is called the e-governance policy and strategy.
Okay.
And what that is a policy for us to move towards digitizing government for more efficiency, more transparency. I think the Prime Minister's comments were pretty direct. He felt that e-governance, digital governance will bring less corruption, and that's a buzzword as well, to use your term. It will bring more accountability, more efficiency in service. It will bring lower cost of doing business, improve our doing business index. There's just a number of benefits that will come from it. So we started that program with a strategy for us to figure out how to move government services from being paper-based to becoming digital, and to move the physical interaction to becoming more automated, where the citizen is very engaged in that process. The citizen then is the one that makes a decision as to how that service is delivered, participates in that delivery, and is able to monitor the progress of that delivery. Now, if you think about some of the things that have failed in our system, it's because of human interaction within that process that might manipulate that process or might fail because of mistakes, delays, inefficiencies. So once a citizen is looking at this process and participating in it, it means that the imperative to deliver properly then becomes greater. So we've been looking at our development partners to help us along this road.
Right.
We've worked very closely with the government of Taiwan.
Okay.
They have helped us, well, first of all, with the establishment of the ICT Center in Belmopan, where CITO is housed. They donated that, which was open in 2010. But also we have a very, very close relationship with Ambassador Charles Liu and with the ICDF group, where they have helped us with developing multiple applications, training to be able to help us to build that infrastructure. And several things have been launched recently, which is now opening the window for the public to interact electronically with government. Okay. But we wanted to go one step further. So we decided that we would engage Microsoft, who has been a long-term partner with government. They've supplied us with, I'd say, 80 to 90% of the services, ICT services that government uses for the internal workings of government. And that includes things like server licenses, user licenses. We have licenses, certain software that we use, security software. So we thought, let's look at government as this big enterprise. So we reapproached them at the renewal of our contract, and we said, guys, look, why don't you look at us differently? Here's the road that we want to go down. This is what we're spending with you today. These are the things we're getting from you. So why don't we look at it differently and see if we can get a bundle of services in the same envelope that will take us down the road we want to go. And that envelope of services, of course, includes some of the same server licenses we need. We also found out that a lot of government was unlicensed, meaning that a lot of departments were using software that was not, I don't want to use the word legal, but they were pirated copy. So we wanted to legalize all those users. We wanted to consolidate the server licenses under an enterprise agreement where we get economies of scale. We get bulk pricing. We needed to expand the number of licenses that we had because we're now moving more departments to become digital. We wanted more security. And of course, we also wanted to start moving towards a cloud environment, which is where the world is going. No more is software being bought on disks and put on machines. They're actually being hosted in the cloud and accessed on a subscription basis. So we wanted to move towards that as well. So putting all this together with our goals and objectives, we approached Microsoft and we said, look, let's come up with a new agreement. So the first thing we did was to sign a memorandum of understanding to chart the course as to where we are going to go. And that started off with them visiting and doing what's called a roadmap. So in April, we spent 4 days, 5 days meeting with key departments and understanding where everybody needs to go to get to this end goal that we want to, which is this fully connected government that's connected among itself and that's connected with its citizens for interaction. That's where we want to be. So they helped us to build that roadmap, and this MOU is sort of a punctuation of that roadmap, where, okay, now we're now talking about getting the tools to get us to where we need to go. So I hope that describes it well.
It does, very comprehensively.
And just to add, everyone keeps talking about business continuity, and that's something that the substantive director of CITO, Mrs. Langsworth, used to always preach to us, is business continuity. What do you do after somebody leaves or after a disaster happens or whatnot? So with us signing this new agreement and moving to the cloud, we can use the cloud as a hot site. So if something were to happen to government infrastructure, we can always reboot off of the cloud. So it helps us with business continuity as well.
Definitely, because you want to promote the passing of that tacit knowledge. It's very invaluable. For the average person who is very new to the concept of e-governance, what would it encompass for our country? What would that mean?
Let me, e-governance for us, as I said, it's a connectivity between the citizen and government, and that's perhaps the simplistic way of saying it. But what it is, it's a new way of looking at how we interact. We've gotten used to doing it in our private life. You know, we're now interacting with our electronic devices on a literally daily moment basis. Everybody is glued to their electronic device. Now you have broadband expanding throughout the country. BTL this summer is rolling out their direct fiber connection to all homes in Belize. So broadband is getting broader. The exchange of information is becoming more efficient, but government is still stuck to where we're still peddling paper. People are still standing in lines. You know, you go to Belmopan at the immigration department any morning, and the lines are so long. Labor department, just about anywhere you go. So the idea is to first of all get rid of those lines. Let's try to figure out how the citizen can spend his or her time doing things that are more productive. So that's what an e-governance system does. It brings efficiency, it brings more convenience, it connects people, it gives people information. And information is key. It means that you can react to things. It means that you are able to to influence processes because you are connected. You can report on how well processes are working. In the absence of that, where you're dealing with paper-based systems, and there's a file stuck in some drawer somewhere in Belmopan that you don't know where it is, all you know is that your file was lost. But if you're looking at that file electronically, you know exactly where it is, and you know who lost it. So that gives the citizen, it empowers the citizen. It also means that the leaders have to act a little bit differently because they are now in a spotlight. So being on a spotlight means that whatever it is that you do, you're now being watched by the entire country because they can look at what you're doing by punching a key or looking at their cell phone. So e-governance is empowering. It's also it also reduces significant cost of doing business because it means that you don't have to spend all that time in lines. You don't have to drive to Belmopan 3-4 times because you forgot a piece of paper. It also sponsors a private sector development because it means that now people that can be service providers can be brought into that entire process. For those people that may not have the connectivity or the knowledge on how to use electronics. So there's so many facets to e-governance, but I think the big thing is that it brings better governance. Because it means that we don't spend all the time on the details of governance and worrying about who's doing what and the personalities, because the personalities are taken out. It's the process that then works, and the process is then on full display, and it's being handled electronically, and computers don't sleep. They don't have mortgages to pay. They don't have girlfriends that they have to buy things for. So they're hopefully incorruptible. And of course, that's where the security comes in, but that's a whole other discussion.
I've always thought about the idea from a citizen's perspective about having to stand in long lines, let's say at the income tax department or any other government agency, when in other jurisdictions one can simply wake up at midnight and decide to pay a bill to government without having to form a line and do all of these things. And if they don't have the the hurdles to cross, so to speak. If the officer wakes up and has a bad day, you don't have that to deal with because you're simply dealing with an automated system.
Well, let me tell you about the pillars that we're putting together. One sec, President. The pillars that we're putting together to solve exactly some of those issues. So a little bit about our strategy, just real quick. So we are looking at building the foundations, and that's where we're at right now. Because to build all these services, you have to build foundation. You know, there's two different approaches. The old approach would have been to go to a large company like Oracle or SAP and buy this big, massive enterprise system that will restructure everything that we do. Nobody can afford that. We can't afford that. It's too expensive. The shift is going to be too much of a shock that we would never adapt. So we're doing it in a sort of a federated way. We're looking at all the government systems that already are there, that have ICT systems in the back end, but they just don't have that access to interconnect or that access for the citizen to be able to get in there to get the things that I spoke about. So the interconnectivity is one of the main pillars that we have to work on. How do we connect what we have already so the information is shared? I'll give you an example. We hear so much about immigration and identity and how identities are manipulated. So the idea is that if we can take all our stores of data that control official identification of citizens, passports, social security card, vital statistics, your immigration, your voter IDs, your driver's license database, if they can all speak to each other and they're all electronic and the citizen has access to apply for those things, and anybody who needs to access it has access to all those databases, not just one. You can't really have manipulation because it means the manipulation would have to be systemic as opposed to individualized in one department. So that's an example of interconnectivity. You know, all these speaking to each other, which means that now you have integrity in the system. Okay, so the first thing we're working on is interconnectivity, to interconnect all these government systems, the tax systems. If customs can speak to GST, can speak to immigration, to the land folio, then you can track what's happening with taxes and finances a lot easier. So that interconnectivity is one of the pillars. So we're working now at building systems to interconnect government systems, first and foremost. Then the second part of it is to identify citizens. We spoke about identity. So we have a working group that's working at creating what's called a National Citizen Register, which will combine those stores of data that I spoke about so that there's a single view of you, Isani Cayetano. When you biometrically present yourself someplace, they can track and know exactly that you are who you say you are. And the services that you're entitled to will then be very easy to deliver to you because you have been authenticated in the system electronically and personally.
And it also makes it easier to outreach to the rural citizen, those in the villages who have to travel from Corzal all the way to Belmopan. You go to immigration, you stand in line all day, go to your interview, they tell you your paper is wrong, you have to go back, you have to come back the next day, same trip. It's so wasteful to the citizen.
Very wasteful.
So
the third pillar is payment. That's what you spoke about. You spoke about the ability to pay. Government should be open 24/7. There's no reason that government should open at 8 o'clock, close at 12, open at 1, and close again at 4:30 because the cashier closed. You know, we're talking about trying to increase government revenue, but we're refusing money after 4:30. Why? So the idea to make an electronic cashier for government, an electronic payment gateway, is something that's that's the third pillar that we're working on to be able to power all these systems. So we have a working group. As a matter of fact, we're in the final stages of developing the project document for an e-payment gateway that where the Treasury Department will then be converted to an electronic payment window that will then power all these different departments and that will provide access to be able to pay using different methodologies. The central bank last year launched their automated payment system, which already links all the banks together in one common network. So the idea is that government will then have access to that payment gateway to be able to, where, Jamie, you can set up an account, a payment account with government, where anything that you owe to government will show up on that, and all you do is hit a button, and it takes it out of your bank account and it pays it. So you don't have to stand in line. Your application's online, your payment online, and the interconnection between governments. That's how we're going to build this foundation. And then all the other systems will then be opened out to the public using these foundations.
And all of this would be centralized under one government portal. So it won't be scattershot everywhere. You have to be visiting like 5 different websites. It would all be under one hood.
Let me ask a question here quickly. As it is, we get the impression, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that government is very robust and top-heavy, and sometimes you have duplications of roles and what have you from department to department. When you transition to an e-governance platform, I would want to think that it reduces the number of human resources that would be needed. Correct? That's the first part.
Well, as the process opens up, because we talk about process improvement, as you open that process, then you see that. It becomes so evident. Because then it means that there can only be one portal through which you would access a service. And behind the scenes, that has to be connected to the people that will be, or the departments that will electronically deliver that service, which means that, and I'll use this word very carefully, it means it will show where the overlaps and the over-governance is. Because now it's not people making decisions as to whether that person will be there signing this paperwork and all that. It's a system that says this is how the process works, and the people will then have to fit in the system as opposed to the system fitting into the people. So it should help us with right sizing what we're doing, and that I'll leave it at that. I won't go any further because that raises implications.
I'd just like to add to that it also helps government reallocate resources to where they're most needed, as opposed to just having people push paper, and as Mr. Singh was saying.
I want to play the devil's advocate just a little bit, because I know I had mentioned earlier before we started the show that our situation is unique. And what I meant by that is the fact that within our very tiny country of all 7 of us living here, the perception of government and governance and politics and partisanship, it's very all over the place. People with their own opinions. And so when it comes to development, even if it's progressive, even if it's productive, if it's more efficient, they're not going to see the benefit of that. They're not going to trust it. Their confidence in it is pretty much going to be non-existent. And there's also the issue of persons not being savvy with technology. They know how to use Facebook on their phones, but do they know how to operate to access an e-governance system? Just maybe 1 second. So how do you address those challenges? Okay,
I'll address both of those. First, let's talk about the adoption and whether people will trust. The trust is in the delivery. I would imagine that if all of a sudden you tell me I don't have to stand in a line to get my passport, and I can apply for it on that same device that I look at Facebook, I don't see why I wouldn't try it. And if it fails, then of course, and I'll complain that it failed. But if it works, great. I mean, we've transitioned the BELAPS, which is now working beautifully. Nobody that's applying for a trade permit, whether it's a supplies control, BAHA, and all these permits, no longer have to go to Belmopan to do it. And so the proof is there, and you have happy customers.
And just to add to that, we've had pilot runs with the brokers and the stakeholders who would be using the system BELAPS. And the feedback has been positive. So the system was built over 5 years with feedback from them and interaction with the different agencies, and we hope we've built a perfect system for them. It's supposed to launch in December.
Nothing's perfect, but as close to perfect as we can. So the second point you brought up, which is the point of adoption, one of the things that we've done is I mentioned partnerships. So one of the partners that we're working with is BTL because of their rollout nationwide. Of their things that we spoke to. We're actually having major discussions with the new CEO, Mr. Schreiber, and with their board about how BTL can partner with us. And the first step in the partnership is that BTL is also participating in this Microsoft role. BTL is a Microsoft distributor, so they're actually going to be selling us a lot of those products locally, so we don't have to, the foreign exchange and so forth. Is going to be easy. That's one. The second thing with BTL we're working with is that we're looking at rollout of the last mile. Their rollout of fiber to homes and their expansion of mobile broadband is actually going to be very key in us being able to pull this off, because it means that everybody has to be connected, and the people that aren't connected would have to be connected through agents. Now that's I spoke about service providers, because there's no reason that an agent in Punta Gorda can't be an agent for government services as long as they're certified and they're set up with the technology.
Right.
Because the data capture is the data capture. At the end of the day, if I authenticate you as a citizen living in Halakte biometrically, then there's no reason that electronically I can't deliver service to you through a kiosk or through your mobile or through a walk-in center. So all those things will need to be built out through partnerships to get to that last mile. So we don't expect, the Prime Minister, the first thing he asked me, he says, Mike, what about people that don't have technology? I said, well, then we will have to bring technology to them or make it accessible where people that have technology can serve the ones that don't.
Yeah.
And that's how we anticipate doing that. So it's going to take a little evangelical movement and sort of developing a system where people can participate differently. But it's doable. We're a small country. There's not that many of us. We can do this.
7 to be exact.
Oh, there's only 7 of us? I like that. We can do this.
Talk to us a little bit about the marketing. Yeah, you come on the show, but for the person in PG or for the person in the Keys who don't necessarily watch the show, they're not tuned into the television or the radio, what are the other marketing strategies to get the people aware and knowledgeable and open?
Well, CITO has never really been upfront as a department, and I'll tell you why, because it was really set up originally as a unit under the Ministry of Finance. Okay. And it's only been last year that we've actually brought CITO more to the forefront to take the role as the leader in this e-governance transformation. So now that we're up front, there's a lot more visibility. So we haven't really gotten into a marketing program directly to the end consumer as yet. Mainly because we're still working on developing those foundations so that we can start rollout. As rollout happens, the marketing will have to happen with it. I'll give an example. There's an opportunity that will come up next year. The re-registration of voters will mean that we have to completely, it's almost a census. Okay, that's something that CITO will be participating along with our citizen registry program. So that gives us an opportunity to go out there and have people understand that the re-registration of voter IDs and voters and being able to get them on a new roll is actually going to open the door for us to get that single view going and have them understand what that means. So Jamie, in brief, we haven't really started a marketing campaign, but we've become a lot more visible at Forum, at the launch we did Wednesday opened people's eyes to say, wow, where did this department come from, or where did this initiative come from? So it is new, and my role is really going to be more that, personally. I am not a technologist. I know enough to not get in trouble, but my role is to become that interface within government. First of all, to sell it in government. I sit with the CEOs on a weekly basis in the caucus meetings, and I am the #1 evangelist within that
You're the
meeting.
Steve Jobs.
I wouldn't go that far, but I am the evangelist that's going to try to make sure that everybody's on the right page. My job is to work with these partnerships with the Taiwanese government. We've been engaging the IDB. The U.S. government has been helping us with some things. So my job is to be that evangelist. So it's more of an evangelical movement than it is a marketing movement at this point. Later on, I think you will see the marketing kick in. Okay,
sounds good. Well, the rollout of this program, the MOU, how soon does that happen? How quick is the process?
The first step is the licensing process. We have the server side, and then we have the user side. This is for public officers within the government of Belize. Then after that, you have the services side, which is where Microsoft has agreed to assist us with our pillars that Mr. Singh was talking about. So the first things that will get done will be the renewal of the licenses for government, because we want to remain legal and we're renewing early. So that would be the first step. Then after that, we need to come up with project charters and project documents and proposals, and basically give them an understanding of what we want and what is it we need, or if we need to contact another partner like the Taiwanese, tell them, okay, we have these tools that we got from Microsoft, how can you help us build this and move forward with that?
I have a really quirky question. I know we're just about wrapping up our time, but will our system have a name? Our e-government system?
Well, we would like to call it gov.bz.
Gov.bz?
Yeah, right now we have a gov.bz website that is pretty much static, but we want to make that dynamic for the user.
Okay.
We want you to be able to log in, authenticate with your national ID, and then there you would have a plethora of services. You can apply for a driver's license. You can, if you're a broker, you can apply through Belize. You would have a link to it. You can apply for an import-export permit and so forth.
And the ability to pay.
So
Yeah.
you asked what e-governance was at the beginning. It's bringing government to your home
Yeah.
as a service. It's making the citizen feel more like, okay, I can control what I'm doing with government. I can see what's happening with what I'm doing with government, as opposed to it looking like government working in the background and so
Right,
forth.
definitely. Well, we want to thank you, gentlemen. This has been quite informative
Thank you.
session.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
definitely looking forward to whatever the name is, gov.bz. So thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's to talk all about film and a new movie coming out. So stay tuned.